Hi everyone. On this auspicious day of celebrating 73 years of anniversary of ICCR and of course the International Dance Day, I am very pleased to participate in the celebration. At the same time, we have to mention that it is also 65 years celebration of India-Malaysia diplomatic relations. I'm here in this fabulous place, the Esplanade Theatre, on the Singapore premiere of Jaya Ram, and having to suddenly talk about Odissi in Malaysia, which is a very wide topic, I could only perhaps speak on the role of Sutra in supplanting Odissi in the soil of Malaysia. First of all, just a brief history of Odissi. As you know, Odissi was only recognized as a classical form much later, as opposed to say Bharatanatyam or Kathakali or Manipuri or Kathak even. And at first, there was a time when Odissi was thought to be a branch of Bharatanatyam. Even the great Rukmini Devi had mentioned so, and this had made those pioneers of Odissi in the state of Orissa ever more determined to project Odissi as a classical form. Therefore, it was only in the late 50s that this happened through the performance of people like Priyambada Mohanty and a few others who demonstrated that there is in Odisha an art form that can be deemed as classical. Such person as Charles Fabry even mentioned that Odissi, from the point of view of the friezes of Rani Gumpa cave in Bhubaneswar, in Kandagiri, Udagiri, in the caves of Buddhism and Jainism, that you can find the evidence of Odissi with orchestra. Now, this is a very interesting thing. It points to the fact that being a 2nd century friezes, that Odissi may well be even more older than many of the other classical forms that was recognized at that time. Now, it took Indrani Rahman with my guru Debaprasad Das to take Odissi all over the 5 continents. Indrani performed to some of the great names, politicians, head of states such as John F. Kennedy, as Khrushchev, as Chow En-lai, as Nasser Arafat, as Queen Elizabeth, and all that kind of thing. And she performed Odissi not as a full Odissi, but as a kind of a exotic with a Bharatanatyam performance. And it is only later with people like Sanjutta Panigrahi, who, by the way, was a product of Kalakshetra, that together with Kaluchanan Mahapatra, together with her husband, the great vocalist Raghunath Panigrahi, that also travel all over the world to make Odissi recognized as one of the great, beautiful, exquisite classical dance of India. Now we focus to Odissi in Malaysia. I think the first person who performed Odissi in Malaysia was Indrani Rahman, possibly in 1965. I'm not sure because I'm in this theatre and I don't have my reference at the moment. And after that, it was people like Chandra who showed that there is another form that was very beautiful. People thought was very beautiful. Chandra was an enigmatic dancer, male dancer, and besides Bharatanatyam, he also did Odissi, and I think he was he was a student of Vijay Kumar Senapati, and he was a good friend of mine. And then what happened is that I came into the picture. I also went to Orissa to do Odissi, first with Vijay Kumar Senapati for 1 or 2 annual session, because I was with the Sydney Dance Company. Then focusing back to Malaysia, I then started to explore Odissi in a much more intensive way besides Bharatanatyam. And my first performance in Malaysia was both Bharatanatyam and Odissi, just as everybody at that time did. And then I had to go back to Orissa in 1982 with a scholarship, with a grant from the Community Arts Board of Australia to study Odissi really intensively for a year. And this is when I then went also to Guru Debaprasad Das. By the way, Guru Debaprasad Das, Guru Kerucharan Mahapatra and Guru Pankaj Charan Das, they were alive at that time. They were the pioneers. Mayada Rao, who is supposed to be the other quaternity, was not there. I think he was more or less in Delhi. But I actually fell in love with this intuitively. I found the Debaprasad style is more or less my style, though I had studied Odissi in Sydney with Shakuntala Nair, who was learning then with Hari Krishna Behera. Then what happened was, fast forward to 1985, where I presented a work called Adoration, which was a kind of a dance theatre inspired by Debaprasad and Guru Gajendra Kumar Panda, who was at that time a young teenager whom I had been also working with. And when Debaprasad died in 1986, I continued this relationship with Gajendra, who I knew was a very not just intelligent but very creative person. And Gajendra, coming from the Ganjam district, is full of that culture-rich Odissi that is truly authentic. Now we focus on more specific of the Odissi with regards to Sutra, and a kind of a formation, a loose formation of a Malaysian Parampara through Sutra. What is interesting is that I started to teach Odissi, and by 1987 we presented a work called Kusmanjali, in which I presented 5 or 6 dancers who were trained by me, Malaysians who are able to do Odissi in a full-fledged kind of manner. And one, of course, the dancers was Gita Shankara, who later became a teacher of Temple of Fine Arts and started that seed in Temple of Fine Arts. At the same time, Sutra was on full gear of establishing the dance academy, establishing the very material through the dancers with our own kind of training, not any kind of training where it is only concentrating on the dance exercise, but concentrating Sutra's body in terms of being the most efficient instrument for the dance form, which is Odissi and even Bharatanatyam at that time. But at the same time, in terms of the content, I had started to commission a lot of work with Gajendra, and these are exciting work. These are works that are promoted the parampara of Guru Debaprasad does in a much more kind of a scientific manner. Not only we had started to take some of his old works and make it really wonderful, but also we had I had made a commission and inspired Gajendra to do new works, so that he himself is contributing some very interesting repertoire. So we did many works, such as Ganjam, such as now what we are doing, the premiere of a new work called Jaya Ram, which we had performed in 3 festivals in India, besides having 2 seasons in Malaysia. And in Jaya Ram, what we kind of promoted the philosophy of Debaprasad, which goes through all these decades, that the classical form must have also the content of the folk and tribal in order to be kind of authentic. So he feels that a lot of the work in the classical form is too intellectual, that it needs to have the power back again coming from the folk tradition. So voila, today we have the premiere of Jaya Ram. In a few minutes time, the audience are going to come into this wonderful theatre of the Esplanade, the main theatre of the Esplanade, and we have a premiere of this work which both Guru Gajendra Kumar Panda and I had collaborated last year just after the COVID. In retrospect, in the last 4 decades, Sutra had traveled so extensively, nationally and internationally. In Malaysia, from Kanga to Kota Kinabalu, from Kuala Terengganu to Malacca, we've done it all. We have performed in US, in Carnegie Hall, in Europe, in Japan, in China, in Southeast Asia. We have traveled. At the same time, the integrative approach of Sutra, taking in painters and photographers and the literary people such as Jatindas, Dinanath Patti, Ilango Venkataraman, photographers such as Shivaraja, Magan Subramaniam, A. Pratap, in Odisha, Kishore Sahu, Jyoti Swain, Ramaharijana, all the huge number of people in retrospect that we have collaborated shows the inclusivity and the reaching out of Sutra. And it's almost like bringing curry to Madras, and we bring it back again to Odisha, we bring back again to India, what we have learned, and continue to revel in this celebration of working together. So here we are in the dressing room of the dancers of Sutra Foundation, with them preparing, tying the saris instead of having a stitch saris like most dancers of Odissi are doing. But just like as proposed by Debuji, and putting the cheetah on their faces. Although a lot of them say that, look, we don't do that anymore, but I thought we maintain this wonderful tradition of Odissi, old Odissi, still in vogue with Sutra Foundation. They are going to do a work called Jaya Ram, which is influenced by the folk traditions of Ram Leela and Rama Natakam of South Odisha, where Guru Gajendra Kumar Panda and I had done extensive research in order, as I mentioned about the Tridhara of the existence of the classical, folk and tribal, to inject the influence, the fresh, authentic energy of folk dance and the earthy rhythm of folk music into the traditional classical Odissi repertoire. So ladies and gentlemen, because of the very significant collaboration of Guru Gajendra Kumar Panda from India and I from Malaysia, with artists of Sutra Foundation, and also with musicians of India, the work Jaya Ram has become the perfect performance to celebrate the 65 years of diplomatic relations of India and Malaysia. And here we shall witness the living theatre where Bharat meets Malaysia in Singapore.